Weilà raga, how's it going everybody? Welcome to today's lesson in our Zero to Hero Italian grammar series, where we're taking a look at Italian grammar from the most basic to the most advanced topics. Today we're going to be covering the gerundio, which is essentially the progressive form of verbs in Italian. This is how we express that something is happening now. So let's go straight over to the whiteboard and write all of this down. So today we're going to look at the gerundio. This is four things happening now. We are going to look at this also to talk about things that were happening in the past. But for now, we're just going to talk about things happening now. We're going to use stare as an auxiliary verb, as a helping verb. Normally, we don't do that. Normally, it's just avere and essere. But in the gerundio, we use stare. What we're going to do is conjugate it first in the present, because that's how it's used when talking about something happening now. So we say, io sto, tu stai, lui, lei sta, noi stiamo, voi state, loro stanno. What does this translate to? Io sto means I am. Tu stai means you are, and so on. Stare is one of the two verbs in Italian that mean to be. So, stare and essere mean to be. How do we tell the difference between the two of them? Stare and essere are actually pretty easy to tell apart. Because stare, first of all, can also mean to stay, but this is used for temporary things. Essere is used for more permanent things. It may not necessarily be 100% permanent, but let me give you a simple example. When asking someone, how are you? What do we say? Come stai? Because your mood, the way you're feeling, could change. Even if it doesn't change, it has a possibility of changing. So that's why we use stare. How about when we say di dove sei? This means where are you from? Where you're from is something that's permanent. You can't change where you were born. So that's why we use essere there. So I'm just going to write here, I'm just going to put a little arrow down to temporary and an arrow down here to permanent. And that's why we use stare versus essere. You could probably get a bit deeper into this, but honestly, I think this is enough, especially for the purposes of what we're doing today. So just as a quick little review, what we just did, we just conjugated all of stare in the present tense, because that is how we're going to be using it in the gerundio when talking about something happening now. What's the next step? What we have to do is take our main verb and we're going to put it in one of two forms, depending on if it's an are, ere, or ire verb. Are verbs will end in ando. So for example, parlare will change to be parlando. And what would the definition or the meaning of that be, the translation rather? This is like saying to talk, and this means talking. So ando in Italian, ing in English. If you have an ere verb or an ire verb, they both have one verb ending, which is endo. We love when we have less things to memorize, right? Nice and straightforward. Let's do an ire verb like scrivere. That will become scrivendo. When we have an ire verb like pulire, that will become pulendo. So now to say, I am writing, you are cleaning, he, she, or it is speaking or talking. Just take the appropriate form of stare to correspond with who's doing the action, and put one of these after it, parlando, scrivendo, pulendo, and so on. So let's do some simple examples here. I could say, sto parlando l'italiano. This means I'm speaking Italian. Are there situations in which you could just say parlo italiano? You could to say I'm speaking Italian. It would depend on the context, and maybe if you put something like an adesso after it. Because in English, we wouldn't translate this as I speak Italian now. It almost kind of feels like you're asking for permission, you're making some kind of statement. It feels a little unnatural. So with the adesso, yes, it can work. I'm speaking Italian now. However, otherwise, if you really want to drive the point home that you're doing something now, you would just say sto parlando. Because when we use the present tense and we just say parlo italiano or parlo l'italiano, it is most correct to use the article, but with parlare, it's so common also to omit it. When you say something like parlo italiano or parlo l'italiano, this means I speak Italian. This is just me conveying to someone that it's something I can do, something I know how to do, rather than me saying I'm doing it in this moment. Doing it in the moment, gerundio. Being able to do it in general, present tense. There you go. Fantastico. Let's do some other examples using scrivere and pulire, and then we'll head on over to the past. We can say, stai scrivendo qualcosa? So think about like if you walked over to someone and you saw them writing, and you wanted to say, are you writing something? So let's just go back. Are you writing something? You could technically also say, you writing something? That works as well. So, stai scrivendo qualcosa? And let's say, lei sta pulendo la sua stanza. This would mean she is cleaning her room. Lei sta pulendo la sua stanza. There we go. That's a way of using pulire. So we did one with io. We did I'm speaking Italian, sto parlando italiano right over here. Then we use stare, we'll stare with tu to say you are writing something, stai scrivendo. And then we did something in the third person using lei. This would be the exact same thing if you put lui. It would just be changing, obviously, the gender of the person, right? So lui sta pulendo la sua stanza. The reason why I bring this up is because just as a small little review for possession, he is cleaning his room. It doesn't matter whether a boy or girl is cleaning the room. It's always going to be la sua in both situations because it depends on the gender of what is possessed. So, la stanza. Just as a little review. We've got a whole lesson on that if you guys would like to dip into it further. So that right there is pretty much the basic foundation for the gerundio. If you wanted to say any one of these sentences in the past, that he was cleaning his room, for example, all you have to do is take stare and put it in the imperfect. So let's look at that first. Stare in the imperfect or imperfetto. So let's do that now. Stare in the imperfetto. We can say io stavo, tu stavi, lui, lei stava, noi stavamo, voi stavate, loro stavano. Nice. So lui sta pulendo la sua stanza will become lui stava pulendo la sua stanza. He was cleaning his room. His room. And that, my friends, is how you use the gerundio to talk about something that was happening, something that was going on. Now, there is a version of the gerundio that we simply just call the past gerundio. So if someone says past gerundio, this is what they are most likely referring to. Sometimes people call the past gerundio what we just did with stava pulendo over here. But really the past gerundio is when we use essere and avere as helping verbs. So essere and avere as auxiliary verbs. Okay. Now, when we're saying was happening and is happening, that's when we use stare. When we do this, this is a little different. The past gerundio is slightly different. What we do is essere and avere will go in the gerundio form. And then we have a main verb that goes in its past participle form, the participio passato form, which I'll show you with an example right now. You could tell someone, avendo mangiato tanto, or avendo mangiato troppo, I could say, non riesco a, let's say, mangiare quella pizza. Okay. So how would this get translated? What does this mean? Avendo mangiato troppo, non riesco a mangiare quella pizza. Maybe I ate so much of one thing, I had gelato before dinner, so having eaten so much gelato, now I can't eat the pizza, which was supposed to be my main course. This is like saying, having eaten, ... So having eaten. If you ever want to say that form in Italian, you say avendo mangiato. It's pretty much a nice matchup, you know? A verb in the ing, which is our helping verb. This is in its endo form. This is the past participle form, participio passato form. So is this. Works really nicely. It's quite intuitive when you think about it. Now, what's going to happen with essere? So be sure to check out also our video on the passato prossimo if some of this is not making sense. If a verb requires essere, we would say essendo, let's say essendo stato, or essendo stata. It could be that as well. But I actually want to say, use the verb andare. Essendo andato in Italia, ... You can then fill in whatever you'd like. This means having gone to Italy. Maybe you want to say having gone to Italy 15 times in the last year, you know? Let's say something funny like that, right? Essendo andato, or it can also be andata if referring to a female. Because with essere, we always have to be mindful of gender and number. So, essendo andato in Italia, or essendo andata. If it's a group of people, essendo andati. That can exist as well. So basically, having gone. We did before having eaten. You could use any other verb you want. So all we do is we take avere or essere in their gerundio form. And then we take the main verb, which is the verb that does the main action, like gone, or in the other case, eaten. And that gets put in its past participle form. Participio passato. Yeah, in the participio passato. Nice and easy. So just to do a quick recap of everything we covered with the gerundio today, as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. We have sto, let's do this, sto andando. This means I'm going. That's how we can emphasize that I'm doing something right now. What about if I was doing something? Stavo andando. I was going. And if I want to say having gone, I can say essendo andato. Having gone. Now, essere obviously does not mean on its own to have. It takes on that meaning in English when we're translating because we don't have another way of putting it. But essere is always essere, it means to be. It just depends on how exactly you're using it from a functional point of view. Now, if we had another verb, such as sto facendo, which means I'm doing, in the past, stavo facendo, using the past gerundio, not just the past progressive, I would say avendo fatto, having done. Awesome. Perfetto. There you have it. That, my friends, is the gerundio. There are, of course, other little details that one could get into with this. You could say things like essere andato, that exists as well. But we're not going to get into that today, but you may come across it, or essere andata. And similarly, you may find some people that when they say something like avendo fatto, they may be inclined to translate it like since doing, or maybe by doing, by having done. You may find other translations, but I quite like the having done, having been. I like that way of speaking because that's the way that I tend to talk. So that, guys, is going to be everything for today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot. Be sure to stay tuned for all the videos that are coming and definitely check out the other lessons in this series. So that's going to be it from me today, guys. Always remember to spread the love, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Ciao, ciao.